Hi again. Welcome to Pearl Magazine. When it comes to pet care, Hong Kong people love to give their furry friends the royal treatment. But not every animal is so lucky. Sadly, many pets are abandoned in Hong Kong, left on the streets to survive on their own, or worse, beaten and abused. Tonight, we follow a dedicated group of animal lovers who've made it their mission to help animals in distress.
佢哋都係有心肝脾肺腎，佢都有思想，只不過唔會好似我哋用個口嚟表達俾你睇啫嘛。其實佢已經有個聲，救命啊！救命啊！
虐待動物係啲好簡單嘅心理，你係欺凌一啲最弱、唔會反抗嗰啲。
匿埋啊，唔睬人啊，怕人啊，一係就攻擊人啊。30幾隻動物高處墮下，點解冇人需要為呢件事負上一個責任呢？對個動物嚟講，嗰個公義又喺邊呢？
呢個就係樂天啦，咁啊今年咧就14歲㗎啦已經，咁一個好老嘅老人家。
Pet owner Yen has 8 cats and 5 dogs, all rescued from the street. But it's this cat that's her favorite.
Her name is Guai Guai, rescued in 2013. Her hind leg suffered from an acid attack and had to be amputated.
Yen found Guai Guai in an alleyway with her injured legs. The veterinarian wanted to put her down, but Yen, a nurse at the clinic, felt something different.
She wanted attention and food. She was trying to tell me she wanted to survive. Let me live. I asked my boss if there was a second option.
There was. They amputated her legs to save her life. Yen then took her in.
Like humans, would she feel ashamed and unhappy? Would my other cats and dogs not accept her and bully her? But when she arrived, as if they knew she was handicapped, they loved and treated her especially well.
Despite not having hind legs, Guai Guai likes to move about. Yen lets her sleep with her and her husband.
She sleeps in our bed and takes up 2/3 of the space. We only get 1/3.
Abused animals can suffer long after their traumatic experience ends.
In my most negative moments, I would cry. But when she looks at me when I enter the room, she's like, "Why are you crying? Look at her eat. No one is fighting for your food here." She wants to jump around like she doesn't know she doesn't have hind legs.
According to the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Ordinance, any person causing unnecessary suffering to an animal could be prosecuted. But since the law was enacted over 80 years ago, its principle has not been amended. Over the past 3 years, of the 800 animal cruelty complaints received, only 61 cases were brought to court.
It's not just cats and dogs. A cow was once stabbed by someone.
Mac says he's come across many abuse and cruelty cases. He says suspects can dodge punishment under the existing law.
The law requires proof of intent, but the victim can't talk. Closed-circuit TV must capture the crime clearly, including the criminal's face.
In 2019, the government launched a consultation exercise on an amendment to the ordinance, hoping to increase maximum jail terms from 3 years now to 10 years. One key change would require owners to provide satisfactory shelter, food, and health care.
The penalty must be heavier. There's no deterrent now. Owners should have to get a license. How can you care for an animal if you're not knowledgeable?
係咪冇咁肥啊？
肥咗啊，入咗，我係而家要同佢減啊。
Guai Guai spent 8 months getting treated at Mac's clinic. He says seeking justice for her trauma is one thing for the animal. Finding a home is more important.
I remember making a wheelchair, prosthetic limbs. It was funny. What she needs is not justice because she has no concept of that. What she needs the most is an owner.
Edmund is an inspector at the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the SPCA.
When people see an injured or a suspected case of animal abuse on the street, they call us. We are on standby, ready to respond to any case. The law has a very high threshold. Not every case can be defined as a violation of the law.
Pet birds have also suffered abuse. Edmund is responding to a suspected abuse report of an injured bird.
It punctured the stomach. It is a very important and vital organ. It may easily get infected. Obviously, someone tried to shoot at the pigeon. What sort of mentality is that? Did the pigeon do something to them? Or do they get joy out of hurting it? Whatever it is an animal abuse behavior.
Birds are very mobile. Where the bird is injured may not be where the crime is captured by a CCTV. It's difficult to find evidence.
Edmund says often there's a lack of evidence in their investigations. The fact that the law only allows them to prosecute within 6 months of the crime makes it even more difficult.
Animals cannot tell us what's happened to them. So you have a lot of questions like how long have they been abused for and whether it's a one-off incident. This is also how the animal may recover. Physical injuries can be treated, but psychological injuries take a long time to recover.
This animal shelter is taking care of more than 70 homeless dogs, some heavily abused in the past.
Normally, they rush in and demand attention. A closed mouth means it's nervous.
Kent set up his rescue group 7 years ago. He frequently receives multiple calls for help in a single day.
Some puppies are abandoned, left in a plastic bag on the roadside, and then suffocate. In the winter, some people eat dog meat. They would breed them and eat the puppies. Still, the puppy's parents think their owner is nice, wagging their tails and remain very loyal.
Having come across many abuse cases, Kent keeps his emotions in check.
I force myself to be numb. If I were very emotional, I would go crazy. We have the nicest cars, luxury flats and luxury items in Hong Kong, but somewhere in the city, animals are still treated badly.
The shelter has limited resources. Kent says foster homes are desperately needed.
Foster care means teaching with patience, to teach the animals, especially those previously abused, that humans won't hurt them. This may take a long time. It's about finding a better future and not grow old and die in the shelter.
我哋而家接 Jackie 去覆診啊 ！Jackie 喺站托度。
Kent rescued Jackie from the street. He has complications from malnutrition and joint pain. An old couple took him in, but had to hand him over to a neighbor when people complained about the barking.
The old neighbor didn't care much and would beat Jackie up. We're picking up Jackie to see the vet, and for neutering and to find a new foster home.
But Jackie never got used to his new home. The temporary owner, told Kent the dog barked a lot and attacked other dogs in the family, so they gave Jackie up.
They have their own reasons, so I apologized for the trouble. I don't know what Jackie had gone through. It takes time for such a dog to adjust.
Without a foster home, Kent still can't take Jackie back to the shelter because he's not had his rabies shot. So he spent a night in the park with him.
乖唔乖啊狗？喺邊嚟而家？Sit then, sit. Good.
Taking care of injured animals is only Kent's part-time job. But he's so busy, it feels like a full-time one.
I have a full schedule today, a few jobs, then there was an emergency. Now I'm back on track to pick up some medicine and also a dog. We've found him a foster home. After Jackie visited the clinic, the vet increased his dosage, so we've picked up some pills.
Andrew 啲藥我念咗喺鐵閘度，麻煩你今晚翻去俾 Jackie 食，連埋舊藥一齊食得㗎啦。唔該晒。好啦，我哋去做第二個救援啦。
One woman filmed a cat quite seriously injured. Maybe it has cat flu.
The AFCD euthanizes more than 1,000 stray cats and dogs every year. The law has never stated how the government should treat stray animals. But animal rights activists say there should be a policy to prioritize neutering animals to keep their numbers down.
Cats give birth every 2 to 3 months. Many are born sick or killed by stray dogs. The reason why we have a lot of injured stray animals is because we don't prevent breeding. We hope to have more catch, neuter, and release.
Kent says he's spending more time caring for animals on the street than on his own pets.
With the power of love, you naturally help them. It's something that can't be measured. I even beg people to let me take their dog to see the vet, or look for injured animals every day. They may bite you at first, but once they know you care for them, they become very loyal. Animals have emotions. Sometimes they're even more affectionate than humans. We may not even be like that.
After the break, a sign of the times. New technology is providing a giant leap in communicating past hearing loss. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Hong Kong, more than 150,000 people live with some sort of hearing loss. For the hard of hearing, sign language is a vital way to communicate and stay connected to the world. But for those of us who don't know sign language, communication with this segment of the population remains a serious challenge. Now, innovative thinking is opening up new ways to connect. A real-time sign language interpreting system is bridging the gap between sound and silence.
Sir， 你哋講緊乜嘢啊？
不如試下用 Jeff 同你翻譯下。
好啊。
哦，原來佢想同你講早晨。
哦，早晨啊。
Since she was a child, Lee Lok Yi has been a volunteer and a churchgoer. In church, she came across many people with hearing impairments. She wanted to understand more about them and learned sign language. She's currently studying for her high diploma in special childcare and inclusive education at the Education University. Sign language, or just sign, is used by people in the deaf and mute community, and so isn't widely known. Most people can't understand sign, and so can't understand what a deaf or mute person wants to say. The lack of understanding often creates awkward situations for people that must use sign to communicate.
Some from the deaf mute community have shared with me that when paying by Octopus card on public transport, they're often mistaken for not having paid. They would then explain in sign language that they had paid. There would be disputes because others didn't know what they were trying to say. It's common for deaf mutes to run into trouble in their daily lives because of communication difficulties.
In Hong Kong, there are 150,000 people with hearing impairments. Every now and then, there are reports of tragedies resulting from neglect or a lack of support for them. But things changed in September 2019. 4 software engineering students developed a real-time sign language interpreting system. It had taken them a year to create it. They hope to facilitate communication between those who know and those who don't know sign. The system even won them an IT prize from a competition organized by the Innovation and Technology Commission.
當我係一個健聽嘅人啦，咁咪就當係一個聽障嘅人士啦。
Simply go to the app, record the gesture of the sign language with the front camera, and wait for 5 to 6 seconds.
我想食早餐，咁樣就可以翻譯到出嚟。
Kwok Yu-ho is in charge of the project. He says the smart app is equipped with a 3D hand gesture tracking system. The system has 21 feature points. The camera detects hand movements from these feature points. It identifies and translates these gestures.
For example, the palm, the back, and the joints. When the system acquaints itself with them, it will transform them into some coordinate data and store them into the database.
In the demonstration just now, the sign language gesture for morning and eat are the same. How does the system tell it's breakfast, but not morning and eat? Kwok says when they collected data in the early stages, they had let the system identify words that are related to each other.
If we put morning and eat together, it means breakfast. Therefore, our system will understand it as breakfast and will display accordingly.
In order to better understand the sign language interpreting system, we took on the challenge of learning the phrase, "I want to have breakfast." After a bit of hard work, we learned the phrase in sign. While we practiced, we also tested out the accuracy of the interpreting system with some of our mistakes. We repeated every single word. The third word, to eat, was gestured incorrectly. From on the chest to at the side, what would the result be?
冇咗食字。
我想早餐咯。
認唔到食字。
What happens if the word want is done incorrectly?
我想做。
Chung Ho-yoon supervised the improvements to the system. He says the accuracy of the translation depends on the amount of data gathered.
When we gesture the word want, it should be gestured like this. But if we moved forward or backward, some errors might occur. We'll then need to check the data before making corrections.
Very often, sign language interpreters on TV will repeat the same phrase. For sign language beginners, mistakes are very common. What happens when a mistake is made?
We can provide an approximate shape for you. This is because basic gestures are all similar, unless the same gesture means something else. It could then be mistaken for other words. But it should be able to recognize basic sign language based on the similarity of gestures.
Sometimes when taking pictures, they could be ruined if a stranger is picked up in the background. A similar problem could occur using the interpreting system. Chung says the AI system will filter out useless information. He also says that if the phone is placed at a certain distance, the translation may be more accurate.
It's fine if it could capture the top half. When recording, 3D images are displayed. If the system detects more than one hand in the background, we could fix that. For example, in the MTR, or where there are a lot of people in the background, it won't really affect the system as long as the data on the system is enough.
Kwok says they will continue to add to their database. On average, adding a new phrase to the system requires 20 to 30 sets of data. However, if the phrases get more complicated, they will require more data.
The most we've done is about 50 sets of data, and that already gave an excellent result. For example, the gestures for to have hot pot are more complicated. We need more data to understand the relationship between gestures.
There is a need to create many sets of data because there might be discrepancies among different people's speed, dimensions, positioning, and the height when gesturing. The difference in hand sizes, however, do not affect the accuracy of the system.
The detection points on the hand are not absolute, they are relative. Take this palm, for example, this is 0, and this is 1. Between them could be data more than 0. It's like measuring a hand that's 15 centimeters. We consider a hand as a whole and determine where 0 and 1 should be, depending on where the folds and joints are. Therefore, the size of a hand won't really affect the identification of sign gestures.
Now, do you know what this gesture means?
That's Pearl Magazine for this week. Thanks for watching. See you next time.